Walk into any Australian boat dealership, and you'll notice something. The American boats sit quietly in the corner, barely moving. Meanwhile, locally built aluminum boats disappear as fast as they arrive. It's not subtle, and it's not recent. This pattern has held for decades. At first glance, this doesn't make sense. American boats dominate global markets. They have larger marketing budgets, more dealer networks, and feature lists that seem impressive on paper. They photograph well. They look premium. And yet, Australian buyers systematically reject them in favor of what appears to be simpler, less polished alternatives. The reason becomes clear once you understand what the Australian coastline actually demands. This isn't the protected freshwater of the Great Lakes or the calm marina slips of Florida's intracoastal. The Australian marine environment is relentless. UV exposure reaches indices of 12 to 14 through summer months. The saltwater is aggressive, constantly working its way into every fitting, fastener, and seal. Coastlines stretch for thousands of kilometers with minimal protection, exposing boats to southern ocean swells and tropical cyclone remnants in the same season. Tidal ranges swing dramatically. Coral reefs lurk just beneath the surface. Beach launching over sand and rock is standard practice, not an occasional adventure. And when something fails, you're often hours from the nearest town, let alone a marine technician. What saltwater does to materials over time isn't theoretical in Australia. It's documented in every marina. Gel coat that chalks and cracks under UV bombardment. Stainless steel fittings that pit and corrode despite the name. Wood trim that rots from trapped moisture. Electrical systems that fail when salt bridges connections. Fiberglass that blisters from osmotic pressure. Once you understand what the Australian coastline demands, the choice becomes obvious. This isn't about nationalism or brand loyalty. It's about survival. American boats excel in the environments they were designed for. Protected freshwater lakes like Michigan and the Ozarks. Calm bays with established marina infrastructure. Weekend recreation where the boat returns to a covered slip by Sunday evening. In those conditions, fiberglass hulls make sense. Gel coat maintains its shine in fresh water. Carpet and upholstery stay dry in climate-controlled storage. Wood trim looks premium and lasts when protected from constant moisture. The design priorities reflect this reality. Comfort, aesthetics, features that photograph well for brochures. Australian builders approach the problem from an entirely different direction. Companies like Quintrex, Stacer, Bar Crusher, and Haynes Hunter built their reputations on plate aluminum construction. Not extruded aluminum frames with thin skins, but welded marine-grade 5083 alloy in 3mm bottom plates and 2.5mm sides. No rivets to work loose or leak. No gel coat to maintain. No carpet to trap moisture and mold. No wood trim to rot. Sacrificial anodes come standard because saltwater corrosion isn't theoretical. It's guaranteed. Self-draining decks because water intrusion is constant. Minimal through-hull fittings because every penetration is a future failure point. The material choice reveals the philosophy. Marine-grade aluminum can be repaired by any competent welder in any coastal town. Dents can be hammered out on a beach. Scratches don't compromise structural integrity. UV degradation doesn't apply. Impact tolerance matters when you're launching over rocks or hitting submerged debris 40 nautical miles offshore. The weight-to-strength ratio means these boats get on plane faster, burn less fuel, and can be trailer launched by one person. American boats are designed to impress at the dock. Australian boats are designed to return from places that don't have docks. The gel coat starts chalking first. Within 18 months in the Australian sun, that glossy showroom finish becomes dull and rough to the touch. By year 2, crazing appears. Fine spiderweb cracks spreading across the hull. By year 3, osmotic blistering begins. Water penetrates through microscopic gel coat imperfections, gets trapped between the gel coat and fiberglass laminate, and creates pressure pockets. The hull develops what boaters call boat pocks. Repairing it means grinding down to bare fiberglass, drying the hull for months, then re-gel coating. Expensive, time-consuming, and often incomplete. Stainless steel components corrode in ways that surprise American boat owners. Crevice corrosion starts where fittings meet surfaces. Pitting forms in aggressive salt water. And the metal that's supposed to be stainless fails within seasons. Many American boats use aluminum components in grades not rated for salt water. When dissimilar metals contact each other in the presence of an electrolyte like seawater, galvanic corrosion accelerates. Electrical systems fail from moisture intrusion despite sealed connections. The structural issues emerge more slowly but hit harder. Stringers rot from water that works its way into the foam core and finds trapped wood. Transoms fail from the repeated stress of trailer launching on concrete ramps. Something Australian boating assumes but American designs don't account for. Hull flex from wave impacts creates fatigue in fiberglass layups. Deck delamination occurs from thermal cycling, the constant expansion and contraction as surfaces heat to 60 degrees Celsius in summer sun, then cool overnight. Then come the hidden costs. Parts must be imported from the United States. There are no local service networks for most American brands. Fiberglass repair requires specialized skills and materials. Resale values collapse as condition deteriorates faster than age would predict. Meanwhile, 30-year-old Australian aluminum boats still command strong resale prices. The difference isn't subtle. Australian builders engineered their boats specifically to solve these problems. Marine-grade 5083 aluminum plate, not thin extrusions, forms the hull structure. Full welding instead of riveting eliminates thousands of potential leak points and stress concentrators. Reverse chine designs throw spray down and away in rough water. Integrated spray rails break following seas. Self-draining decks slope toward scuppers that empty overboard, so water never accumulates. Foam-filled sponsons provide unsinkability even if the hull is punctured. Component selection follows the same practical logic. Yamaha, Suzuki, and Honda outboards dominate because these Japanese manufacturers design their engines for global saltwater use. Stainless fittings use 316 marine grade, not the cheaper 304 that corrodes. Sacrificial anodes come standard on every hull because galvanic protection isn't optional in saltwater. Electrical systems use fully sealed connections. Through-hull penetrations are minimized because every hole in the hull is a future problem. The features exist because of how Australians actually use boats. Reinforced keels handle beach launching over sand and rocks. Grounding on a sandbar doesn't mean structural damage. It means waiting for the tide. Rod holders and live bait tanks integrate into the hull structure rather than bolting on as afterthoughts. Anchor wells drain directly overboard, so rope and chain don't sit in stagnant water. Boarding platforms are rated for human weight in rough conditions, not just calm water aesthetics. Maintenance becomes remarkably simple. Hose the boat down with fresh water after each trip. That's it. Dents can be hammered out with basic tools. Scratches don't compromise anything because there's no gel coat to breach. Any welder can repair aluminum damage. The engines are supported by dealer networks across every coastal town because Yamaha, Suzuki, and Honda service centers exist globally. Nothing is proprietary. Nothing requires specialized knowledge to fix. The numbers tell the real story. A 10-year-old American fiberglass boat retains 30 to 40% of its original purchase price. A 10-year-old Australian aluminum boat holds 60 to 70%. 20-year-old examples still work commercially in charter fleets and professional fishing operations. The The difference comes down to condition versus age. Aluminum boats don't deteriorate on the same timeline. Their value reflects capability, not cosmetics. Run the total cost of ownership over 10 years, and the initial price advantage of American boats disappears. Purchase price, annual maintenance, repair incidents, and depreciation all factor in. An American boat might cost less initially, but the gel coat work, corrosion repairs, and structural fixes accumulate quickly. Insurance companies recognize this pattern. Some charge premium increases for American fiberglass boats in saltwater environments based on claim history. Survey requirements tighten for older American boats because condition becomes unpredictable. Meanwhile, fuel efficiency favors aluminum. The lighter hull weight means these boats get on plane faster and stay there with less throttle. Over thousands of hours of operation, that adds up. Service networks matter more than most buyers realize. Every Australian coastal town has welders who work on aluminum boats. Parts come from local manufacturers or arrive within days. American boat owners often drive 3 hours or more for authorized service centers. Imported parts take weeks to arrive, and specialized fiberglass work costs significantly more than aluminum welding. Usage patterns reveal the fundamental mismatch. Australians trailer their boats, launch from public ramps, fish offshore in changing conditions, and beach camp in remote locations. American boats assume marina slips, calm protected waters, and professional storage. When you're 40 nautical miles offshore and hit a submerged log, the difference between dented aluminum and compromised fiberglass becomes very clear very quickly. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, this isn't really about boats. It's about design philosophy. American boats are built for marketing. Features that photograph well, showroom appeal, aesthetics that impress during the walkthrough. Australian boats are built for use. Function that works when it matters, in conditions that punish anything built for appearance over capability. One represents restraint, the other excess. One reflects long-term thinking, the other prioritizes the initial sale. Australian identity has always tied to practical capability and self-reliance. The cultural value isn't status signaling, it's competence. American boat ownership often functions as exactly that, a status symbol, something that looks impressive at the marina. Australian boat ownership treats the vessel as a tool for accessing environments most people avoid. It's a fundamentally different relationship with the ocean, and fundamentally different priorities about what matters. Strip away the marketing and what actually counts. Reliability when you're far from help. Repairability in towns without specialized technicians. Appropriateness for the conditions you'll actually face. Value retention over decades. Peace of mind that comes from proper engineering. Australian boats don't try to impress. They just work. That's why Australians refuse American boats. Not from prejudice, but from experience. They've watched them fail in their harbors. They've calculated the true costs. They've learned what their conditions demand. And they've chosen accordingly. The choice isn't emotional, it's rational. It's what happens when buyers have enough experience to see past the brochure. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, this isn't really about boats. It's about design philosophy. American boats are built for marketing. Features that photograph well. Showroom appeal. Aesthetics that impress during the walkthrough. Australian boats are built for use. Function that works when it matters, in conditions that punish anything built for appearance over capability. One represents restraint, the other excess. One reflects long-term thinking, the other prioritizes the initial sale. Australian identity has always tied to practical capability and self-reliance. The cultural value isn't status signaling, it's competence. American boat ownership often functions as exactly that, a status symbol, something that looks impressive at the marina. Australian boat ownership treats the vessel as a tool for accessing environments most people avoid. It's a fundamentally different relationship with the ocean and fundamentally different priorities about what matters. This pattern repeats across industries. When conditions are unforgiving, design honesty becomes non-negotiable. You can't market your way out of material failure. You can't photograph your way past corrosion. The environment doesn't care about brand reputation or advertising budgets. It simply tests everything against the same standard. Does it work, and does it last? Australian boat builders understood this from the beginning. They weren't trying to compete on features or luxury appointments. They were solving a specific problem. How do you build something that survives decades of saltwater exposure, UV bombardment, beach launching, and offshore conditions without constant professional maintenance? The answer required different materials, different construction methods, and different priorities. It required letting go of everything that didn't serve the core function. Strip away the marketing and what actually counts. Reliability when you're far from help. Repairability in towns without specialized technicians. Appropriateness for the conditions you'll actually face. Value retention over decades. Peace of mind that comes from proper engineering. Australian boats don't try to impress. They just work. That's why Australians refuse American boats. Not from prejudice, but from experience. They've watched them fail in their harbors. They've calculated the true costs. They've learned what their conditions demand. And they've chosen accordingly. The choice isn't emotional, it's rational. It's what happens when buyers have enough experience to see past the brochure. In a world of boats designed to sell, Australian boats are designed to survive. Sometimes the smartest choice isn't the flashiest one. It's the one that's still fishing in 20 years. That's proof that when something is engineered properly for its actual purpose, it never really goes out of style. If you found this interesting, make sure to like the video. It really helps the channel. Share it with anyone into boating, fishing, or engineering that actually stands the test of time. And if you enjoy content like this, subscribe for more on smart design choices that most people overlook. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.